Marcus Hale sat on the edge of the cliff, staring at the pale blue moons rising above the horizon of Vara 7. The wind whispered through the jagged rocks, carrying a faint scent of metal and soil. He did not speak. He had not spoken to anyone in months. Words had lost their meaning. Trust had lost its shape. And the world had lost its faith in him. Once, he had been a soldier of the Solar Legion, a man who carried honor like a shield and duty like a sword. Now, he was an exile, branded, blamed, and cast out for a mission that went wrong not through his failure, but because someone else had needed a scapegoat. He had accepted the exile silently, retreating from a galaxy that had no place for the quiet kind of hero. His cabin sat alone near the cliff edge, built with his own hands, simple and functional. No neighbors dared come close. No travelers stopped at Vara 7 unless they had urgent business or terrible luck. Marcus preferred it that way. Silence was easier than lies. He heard a soft rustling behind him and ignored it. At his age and with his experiences, he knew the sounds of this planet. The wind, the stones shifting, and the small animals scavenging in the rocks. Nothing more. Yet, that night, something felt different. There was no sense of danger in the usual way. No hint of movement he could recognize. Only a strange pause in the world. As if it was holding its breath. Far from Marcus, in the shattered remains of a small settlement, 5 women gathered. They were known across the local valleys as the widows of Vara 7. Each had lost her husband in the brutal pirate raids that had destroyed entire colonies the previous year. Their faces were lined with grief, but their eyes held sharp intelligence and quiet strength. Asha, the eldest, spoke first. Her voice was soft but carried authority. "We cannot wait any longer," she said. "Our farms, our homes, everything is at risk again. The bladed suns will not spare us." Vea shook her head, her violet skin shimmering under the twin moons. "We have tried, Asha. We are 5 women, with nothing but broken tools and frightened villagers. We cannot fight them." Tala, the youngest, looked at the sky nervously. Her green eyes were wide, full of unspent fear. "If not us, then who?" Asha turned to her with quiet resolve. "There is one person. He is here, near the cliffs. A human. A soldier. He hides. Yes, but he knows how to fight. He may be the only hope we have." The widows shared uneasy glances. They had heard rumors of the human who lived alone. No one dared approach him. He did not speak. He did not trade. He did not even leave the cliffs. And yet, if they did nothing, the pirates would take everything. "Then we have no choice," Maress said finally. Her hands rested on her hips, and her jaw was set. "We go to him." Marcus noticed them before they reached his cabin. 5 figures moving steadily across the rocky terrain. He had expected animals, maybe some scavengers, but not people, especially not ones bold enough to approach him in person. He watched silently as they came closer. There was no fear in them, only determination. His instincts told him to remain inside, to hide, to wait for the danger to pass. But something in their posture, something in the way they moved made him pause. They were not invaders. They were seeking help. When the widows reached the cabin, they stood before the door, exchanging whispered words. Asha took a step forward and knocked gently. The sound echoed in the quiet night. Marcus remained still. 1 knock, 2 knocks. Then a voice, calm but commanding. "Human. We need your help." Marcus felt his chest tighten. He had not heard another human speak to him in months. He stared through the small window. 5 figures. Strange and beautiful, yet clearly desperate. He could see the tension in their shoulders. He hesitated, then opened the door. The widows stepped back slightly, unsure if he would react with hostility. Marcus's face was shadowed, his eyes sharp. He said nothing. He simply studied them, trying to read intentions that were clear. Fear, but also hope. Asha bowed slightly. We are the widows of this settlement. Our homes are under threat. We need a protector. You are a soldier, yes? You know how to fight. You can help us. Marcus's jaw tightened. He wanted to refuse. He had sworn never to raise a weapon again. His past was a burden he carried silently, a weight he did not wish to share. Yet, as he looked at their eyes, strong, brave, but pleading, he felt the old instincts stirring. Why me? He asked finally, his voice low. Why not someone from your own people? Veya spoke this time, her voice softer than Asha's. We have no one left. We are 5 women. We cannot defend against the Bladed Suns alone. You were a soldier once. You have knowledge, skill, and honor. We need that. Marcus's silence stretched for a moment. He studied their faces. He saw grief, but also determination. He saw no illusions, no demands for glory, no promises of riches, only survival. He sighed and stepped aside. Then come in. We talk. Inside the cabin, the widows sat on simple chairs. Marcus remained standing, leaning against the wall. He asked them to tell everything about the pirates, about the farms, about the threats. They spoke quietly, each voice adding pieces to the story. The pirates had returned, moving faster and more organized than before. Several neighboring settlements had been destroyed silently in the night. The widows had tried to warn the villagers, but fear and exhaustion had slowed them. Their farms were broken, their walls weak, their defenses non-existent. Marcus listened carefully. He could visualize the attacks, anticipate the movement of the pirates, and plan accordingly. Even though he wanted to refuse, even though he wished to remain in silence, he could not ignore the threat. This is not a fight you can win with anger, Marcus said finally. You need strategy, preparation, and patience. You will need to trust me. Asha nodded. We will. We have no other choice. Marcus walked to the corner of his cabin and opened a hidden crate. Inside were pieces of old Solar Legion gear he had salvaged years ago. Armor, weapons, and tools, all relics of his former life. The widows watched silently. There was no excitement in his eyes, only calm purpose. For the next few hours, Marcus began his work. He walked the widows through the basics, securing the perimeter, setting up warning systems, and identifying weak points in the farm's defenses. The widows listened, learned quickly, and even asked questions that revealed their sharp minds. Veya had an eye for detail and spotted where a pirate could hide. Morris remained calm under pressure, asking the right questions. Tala's reactions were lightning fast, and she memorized escape routes instantly. Lorene had a talent for mechanics and began repairing broken equipment with Marcus's guidance. By the time the first pale light of the moons touched the horizon, the widows had begun to see a glimpse of hope. They were not helpless. They had a plan, and perhaps, just perhaps, this silent human could be the shield they needed. That night, Marcus could not sleep. He sat by the window, watching the moons rise, and thought of his past. He remembered the day he was blamed for the mission gone wrong. He remembered the faces of his squad, trusting him, and how the blame had fallen on his shoulders. He remembered the exile, the shame, the long months of silence. And now, here were 5 women, alien, different, yet strangely human in their courage, asking him for help. They did not know his past. They did not care. They only knew the present. They only needed someone to stand between them and death. Marcus felt the old fire stir inside him, the fire that had once driven him to protect hundreds, to fight battles with honor, to carry a weight larger than himself. He pushed the memories aside and focused on the task at hand. If he helped them, perhaps he could find a fragment of the man he used to be. If he refused, they would die. And Marcus Hale, the silent soldier, did not allow innocence to die if he could prevent it. The next morning, the widows returned, bringing news from the farms. They reported strange tracks near the village, signs that the Bladed Suns were moving faster than expected. Marcus examined the tracks, analyzing each detail. Direction, size, and pattern. They are cautious, he said finally. They do not expect resistance yet. But they are coming, Asha spoke, her voice steady despite the fear. Then we have little time. Teach us everything. Do not spare us anything. We will follow. Marcus looked at each widow in turn, seeing determination, courage, and trust. He felt a strange warmth in his chest, a sense he had not felt in years. You will not be alone, he said quietly. We will prepare. And when they come, we will face them together. The widows nodded. And for the first time, Marcus felt a small flicker of belonging. He was not just an exile anymore. He was part of something that mattered. Outside, the wind continued to whisper through the cliffs. But this time, it was not empty. It carried purpose, strategy, and the promise of protection. 5 widows and 1 exiled soldier, an unlikely team, standing on the edge of the stars, ready to face whatever darkness approached. And the first shadow of the bladed suns appeared on the horizon, distant but certain, as the silent man prepared to rise once more. The morning sun rose over Vara 7, casting long shadows across the rugged cliffs. Marcus Hale stood at the edge of the settlement, his eyes scanning the horizon. The wind carried a chill that reminded him how exposed the farms were, how vulnerable the villagers had become. He had made his decision. He would help the widows, but only in a way that avoided needless bloodshed. Inside his cabin, Asha, Vea, Mores, Tala, and Lyrene had already gathered. They were ready to hear what Marcus had to say, ready to absorb any instructions he gave. The widows had lost everything once, and they were determined not to lose again. Marcus began with a quiet voice, low and steady. I will not fight for honor, or glory, or revenge. I will fight only to protect. If you want survival, you must listen carefully. Every step must be planned. Every move must be measured. Panic will get you killed. The widows nodded. Their eyes were sharp. Their hands rested on their laps. But their minds were alert. They understood that Marcus was not just a man, they were facing a mind trained for war, a mind that had survived countless battles. First, Marcus said, walking toward the small map table in the cabin, we assess the threat. The bladed suns will not attack randomly. They move with strategy. We need to know their patterns, their strengths, and their weaknesses. If we anticipate them, we can control the fight without risking lives unnecessarily. He pointed to the roads and valleys surrounding the farms. These paths are predictable. The pirates will use the easiest routes. They are confident, arrogant, and impatient. That makes them dangerous, but also careless. Tala, the youngest widow, leaned forward. How do we know when they are coming? She asked, her voice quiet but determined. Marcus reached into a crate and pulled out several small devices. Sensors, tripwires, noise alarms. We will cover the approaches to your farms. Any movement, and we will know. He demonstrated how to set the devices, showing the widows exactly how to hide them, how to test them, and how to monitor them silently. Each widow took turns. Learning quickly, their fingers moved with precision, guided by instinct and urgency. Days passed in a rhythm of preparation. Marcus led the widows and the few villagers who remained in strengthening the farm defenses. Walls were reinforced with salvaged metal sheets. Watchpoints were constructed with care. Escape routes were marked, hidden among rocks and ridges. Every detail mattered. During the day, Marcus trained the widows in observation and reaction. He made them practice silent signals, hand movements, light reflections, even subtle sounds of stones moving. They learned to communicate without words. Asha excelled quickly. She could spot the smallest movement from the farthest ridge. Vea, with her sharp mind, learned the sensors' patterns and suggested improvements. Morris stayed calm in simulated emergencies, coordinating villagers without raising her voice. Lyrene repaired and modified tools and traps, turning broken scraps into useful devices. Tala, young and fast, moved like a shadow, memorizing every path, every crevice in the land. Marcus watched them with growing respect. "You are better than you think," he said quietly one evening, as they rested by a fire. "You are strong, smart, and fast. And if the bladed suns come, you will not be easy prey." The widows exchanged glances. They were learning not only survival, but also hope. Marcus had given them a plan. A way to fight without violence at first. A way to protect themselves and their homes. One evening, as the twin moons rose, the widows sat with Marcus around a small fire. The air was cold, and the night was quiet, but the tension of the coming battle lingered. Asha spoke first. "You do not need to tell us, but why do you help us? You could remain silent and safe. No one would blame you." Marcus stared at the fire, watching the flames flicker. Memories rose unbidden his squad. The failed mission. The exile. His chest tightened. He wanted to speak, to tell them he was broken, that he had no right to be here, no right to protect anyone. Yet, somehow, he could not stop himself. "I swore never to fight again," he admitted. "I left the Legion because of failure I did not deserve. I have tried to live quietly, to hide. But I cannot watch innocents die. Not again. Not when I can prevent it." 18. Vaya reached out and placed a hand lightly on his arm. "You are not responsible for the past. Only for what you do now." Marcus looked at her. The first warmth of connection he had felt in months blooming quietly. He nodded. "Then we prepare. And when they come, we do not fight recklessly. We fight smart." The widows watched him. Not with awe, but with trust. They believed in him. For Marcus, that trust was a new kind of light in the dark. The next day, Marcus and the widows surveyed the outskirts of the settlement. He showed them how to use natural features as defensive tools. Large rocks became barriers. Valleys became choke points. Hills became vantage points for observation. Every feature of the land was used to their advantage. "We will not fight like soldiers," Marcus explained. "We will fight like shadows. They will see resistance, but they will not expect intelligence, patience, or planning. That is how we win." The widows practiced moving silently through the terrain. They set traps non-lethal, but effective at slowing intruders. Simple alarms, nets, and hidden pitfalls gave them confidence. Marcus guided them at every step, correcting mistakes gently but firmly. At night, they would sit and talk quietly. Marcus told stories of his missions not to boast, but to explain strategy, courage, and careful thinking. The widows listened, absorbing wisdom that was older than any of them. 3 days passed. Marcus had mapped every route the pirates could take. He had reinforced the farms, trained the widows, and created multiple escape routes. Yet, as the sun began to dip below the horizon on the 4th day, he knew the pirates would arrive soon. The sensors triggered the first warnings. Small shadows moved across the distant ridges. Marcus peered through his scope. "They are close," he said. "Not yet in force, but scouts are moving. We must remain calm. Wait for them to enter our traps. We do not attack first." The widows prepared. Asha coordinated villagers into safe positions. Vaya and Tala monitored the sensors, ready to alert anyone moving in the wrong direction. Morris checked all alarms and pathways, making sure nothing was overlooked. Lorene adjusted the mechanical traps one final time. Marcus felt a tension he had not felt in years, the calm before battle. His heart beat steadily. He had faced death many times, but this was different. This was not about orders, glory, or duty. This was about protecting people who trusted him completely. As darkness fell, the first scout of the Bladed Suns appeared, a single figure slipping silently over a ridge, confident, arrogant. Marcus signaled the widows, and the trap was ready. A rope mechanism pulled, releasing a net that fell silently on the scout. The figure struggled, surprised, and fell to the ground. The widows moved carefully, capturing the intruder without harm. Good, Marcus whispered. They do not expect intelligence. They do not expect patience. That is our advantage. Over the next hour, more scouts appeared. Each was caught, delayed, or driven off by careful planning. The widows worked alongside Marcus, their confidence growing with each success. They were no longer helpless. They were prepared. By midnight, all scouts had been detected or captured. Marcus checked the horizon. The main force of the Bladed Suns would arrive soon, hundreds of pirates, confident in their numbers. But Marcus smiled quietly. He had prepared them. They would not be easy prey. Late that night, the widows gathered once more with Marcus. The fire flickered in the darkness. "You have changed us," Asha said softly. "We were afraid, weak, and alone. Now, we are not." Marcus shook his head. "I did not change you. I only reminded you of what you already had. Courage. Intelligence. Strength. You are not helpless. You are 5 women, capable of defending your homes and your people." Vaya smiled faintly. "And yet, without you, we would not have learned it." Marcus looked at them. He realized that for the first time in months, maybe years, he felt something resembling purpose. His exile had not been meaningless. His silence had not been wasted. By standing with these widows, he could protect lives, and in doing so, perhaps heal some of the old wounds he carried. The wind howled outside, rustling the rocks. But this time, it did not feel empty. It carried purpose, preparation, and trust. The quiet settlement on Vara 7 had a chance to survive because Marcus Hale, the soldier who wanted no war, had agreed to stand and fight but only to protect. And far across the cliffs, the shadows of the Bladed Suns crept closer, unaware that the silent man and the 5 widows were ready. The first hints of dawn painted the sky over Vara 7 inches, soft shades of purple and gold. Marcus Hale stood at the edge of the cliffs, looking down at the settlement. The farms below had been fortified under his careful guidance. Hidden alarms, reinforced walls, escape paths, and observation points now wove a network that made the land a defensive maze. The 5 widows were already awake, each tending to her assigned post. Marcus had divided responsibilities carefully, matching their strengths to tasks. Asha oversaw the overall strategy, coordinating movement, and ensuring that all traps were ready. Vaya moved swiftly from point to point, checking sensors and tripwires, always alert. Morris remained calm, ensuring the villagers stayed out of danger while managing supplies. Lyrene inspected mechanical traps and repaired broken fences, while Tala ran along the outer edges, memorizing every slope, ridge, and crevice that could conceal an enemy. Marcus had spent the previous days training them, not just in defense, but in thinking like a soldier. They learned observation, patience, anticipation, and the art of using the environment to their advantage. They were no longer 5 widows fearing the return of the Bladed Suns. They were 5 shadows moving silently across their land, ready to defend it. By mid-morning, Marcus gathered them near the central farmstead. "Today," he said, "we test everything. We simulate the arrival of the Bladed Suns. You will move as one. Trust each other. Trust yourself. And trust the land. We do not fight blindly. We fight smart." Asha nodded firmly. "We are ready." Marcus smiled faintly. "Good. Let's begin." He led them along one of the hidden routes, explaining in detail how the first ambush would work. Hidden pitfalls, quiet nets, and noise traps would slow any intruders. Sensors would alert the villagers, and the group would move silently to safe positions. Marcus demonstrated the signals, small hand gestures, taps on the metal walls, even slight reflections of sunlight off a shard. Each widow mirrored the movements, learning faster than Marcus expected. Hours passed with rigorous drills. The widows practiced moving silently, positioning themselves strategically, and responding to simulated attacks. Each mistake was corrected gently. Each success praised. Slowly, Marcus saw them grow not only in skill, but in confidence. Tala, who had been nervous and hesitant at first, now ran from one post to another with precision, her young energy channeled into careful observation. Lyrene worked tirelessly on repairing traps, turning broken metal scraps into functional deterrents. Morris stayed calm under every simulated stress test, coordinating silently with the others. Vea analyzed the movement of each simulated attacker and suggested adjustments. Asha orchestrated the entire operation with quiet authority. Marcus realized the widows were becoming a team, not because he forced them to obey him, but because they trusted him, and more importantly, trusted each other. That evening, as the twin moons rose, Marcus called them together near the main fire. The day had been exhausting, but productive. "You have all done well," he said, his voice calm but firm. "Tomorrow, we face the real test. The Bladed Suns are closer than you think. Their scouts have been spotted. They will arrive soon. You must remain sharp, vigilant, and patient." Asha spoke. "We are not afraid. Not anymore. We have you. And we have each other." Marcus felt a flicker of warmth at her words. Trust and courage were powerful weapons, sometimes more powerful than steel. He nodded. "Good. Then rest tonight. Sleep lightly. Tomorrow, everything we have prepared will be put to the test." The widows dispersed to their posts, the fire's glow fading behind them. Marcus stayed behind, staring at the horizon. The silence of the cliffs was heavy, but not empty. It carried tension, anticipation, and a promise. Now it was time to see if that training would hold. The next day began with the quiet hum of alert systems. The sensors Marcus had placed earlier flickered softly, each one registering tiny movements across the ridges. "They are coming," he said, his voice low. "Stay calm. Watch. Move only when necessary." From a distance, shadowy figures appeared. Scouts of the Bladed Suns, confident in their numbers and unaware of the traps awaiting them. Marcus signaled the widows. They moved silently to their positions, blending with the environment. The first trap was a simple net that fell on one scout as he crested the ridge. He struggled for a moment, confused, before realizing he was trapped. Tala moved forward quickly, ensuring the net was secure. "Good," Marcus whispered. "Patience. Wait for the next move." More scouts approached, each carefully monitored. Marcus guided the widows through the strategy, signaling when to trigger alarms, when to let the scouts pass, and when to delay their advance. By midday, several scouts had been captured, slowed, or misdirected by traps. The Bladed Suns grew frustrated, their arrogance giving way to confusion. They were not prepared for strategy, they expected simple resistance. Marcus and the widows used every advantage of the terrain. Hidden pathways allowed villagers to move safely. Observation points gave early warning. Noise traps and pitfall traps slowed the enemy without causing permanent harm. During a brief pause, the widows gathered near Marcus. "They are more organized than we expected," Asha said. Marcus shook his head slightly. "Organization is not enough. They underestimate intelligence. That is our strength. They will strike hard, but we are ready." Vea pointed to the horizon. "We see more of them. Ships on the clouds. This is no longer scouts, it's the main force." Marcus's eyes narrowed. "Good. That means we will face them soon. Stay sharp. Follow the plan. And remember, no unnecessary fighting. Protect the people, not pride." The widows nodded. Each had learned the value of patience, strategy, and observation. They were no longer just 5 women defending their homes. They were a team, coordinated and capable, standing beside a human who had once hid from the world. As the main force of the Bladed Suns approached, Marcus made final adjustments. The village was ready. Hidden traps, fortified positions, and escape paths were in place. The widows moved like shadows, quietly taking their posts. The first wave of pirates landed, confident and arrogant. They expected an easy victory. Marcus observed from the ridge, his eyes sharp. Signals were given. Traps were triggered. Confusion spread among the pirates. Tala moved silently, guiding trapped scouts to safe containment zones. Lyrene triggered mechanical traps that delayed advancing forces. Morris coordinated villagers into secure shelters while monitoring the enemy. Vea sent early warnings, signaling the smallest movement from the enemy. Asha orchestrated the defensive lines, adjusting positions with calm authority. Marcus took a deep breath. This was the moment he had prepared for. The Bladed Suns were confident, but they had underestimated intelligence, strategy, and courage. The battle began in earnest, though it was not the violent clash Marcus had seen in his past. It was calculated, precise, and controlled. Every move of the pirates was met with traps, misdirection, and strategy. Confusion spread quickly among their ranks. The widows moved with efficiency Marcus had not expected. Each one had learned to trust not only him but each other. They coordinated silently, using hand signals, reflections of light, and subtle sounds. The Bladed Suns had no idea what was happening until it was too late. Hours passed. The pirates were slowed, their morale weakening. Marcus moved among the defenses, calm and focused, guiding his team with precision. They were not just surviving, they were gaining the advantage. By nightfall, the Bladed Suns realized their arrogance had led them into a trap. The settlement remained intact. The pirates were frustrated. Trapped in a defensive network, they did not understand. Marcus gathered the widows after the main force had temporarily retreated. "You did well," he said, his voice quiet but firm. "You were calm, patient, and intelligent. That is how we survive. That is how we protect our people. This is not the end, it is only the beginning." The widows exchanged glances, pride and confidence shining in their eyes. They had learned courage, patience, and strategy. They had worked together. They had stood beside Marcus, the exiled human, and faced a force that many would have thought impossible to resist. Asha smiled faintly. "We are stronger than we believed. And we are not alone anymore." Marcus nodded. He had faced countless battles, but this moment felt different. He was not fighting for orders or pride. He was fighting for people who trusted him. For a team that believed in each other. The wind carried the faint sound of distant ships, reminding them that the Bladed Suns were still out there. But for now, the settlement was safe. The widows had become warriors in their own right, and Marcus, the silent soldier, had found purpose once more. As the moons rose over Vara 7, the settlement glimmered quietly under their light. Shadows moved across the cliffs, and ridges silent, patient, and ready. Marcus looked at the 5 widows. He had trained them. He had guided them. And now, they were prepared for what was to come. The Bladed Suns had returned. But they were no longer facing helpless widows. They were facing 5 warriors and 1 human who would no longer hide. The first light of dawn on Vara 7 barely touched the jagged cliffs, painting the sky in soft shades of pink and gold. Marcus Hale stood on the highest ridge, watching the horizon. The Bladed Suns had returned, their ships slicing through the clouds, moving with deadly confidence. The settlement below was quiet, still, and ready. Every trap, sensor, and barrier Marcus and the widows had prepared was in place. The 5 widows moved among the villagers, guiding them to safe zones. Each woman knew her role perfectly. Asha coordinated movements and maintained morale. Vea monitored the sensors and alerted everyone to the slightest disturbance. Morris ensured that no villager panicked, keeping calm under pressure. Lyrene inspected mechanical traps, resetting them when necessary. Tala ran the perimeter, memorizing every ridge and hiding place. Marcus took a deep breath. This was the culmination of days of preparation, training, and planning. The Bladed Suns were confident, but they had underestimated the intelligence and coordination of their target. Today, the exiled soldier would stand not for orders, not for glory, but for survival. The first wave of the pirate warband landed near the valley edges, expecting little resistance. Their arrogance showed in the way they moved fast, careless, overconfident. Marcus watched them, calculating every move. He signaled to the widows, and they moved silently into position. The traps triggered first. Hidden nets fell. Tripwires pulled alarms, and simple mechanical devices slowed the scouts. Confusion spread among the pirates. They had not expected strategy, precision, or patience. Tala moved swiftly among the shadows, directing trapped scouts into containment zones. Lyrene triggered mechanical traps, slowing advancing groups. Mores coordinated villagers to safe areas. Vea monitored every movement, alerting the group to even the smallest change. Asha kept the lines organized, ensuring everyone worked in perfect harmony. Marcus stayed on the ridge, calm and focused, guiding the defense. He had faced battles before, but this was different. There was no need for unnecessary violence. Every action was calculated to protect lives while slowing the enemy. Hours passed. The pirates realized that brute force alone would not win the day. Frustration replaced arrogance. The Bladed Suns were now cautious, unsure of what awaited them at every step. Marcus knew the main force would arrive soon. He gathered the widows in a quiet corner, their eyes reflecting determination and a shared understanding. "They are close," he said softly. "Everything we have prepared will be tested. Stay calm. Trust each other. And trust the land." Asha nodded. "We are ready. We will not fail." The wind carried distant sounds of engines and footsteps. The main force had landed. Hundreds of pirates now moved toward the farms, confident yet unaware of the traps and defenses waiting for them. Marcus signaled the widows. "Now," he whispered. The traps worked perfectly. Hidden pitfalls slowed groups of pirates, nets captured scouts, and noise alarms disoriented others. The widows moved silently and efficiently, coordinating with Marcus to delay and confuse the enemy. The villagers remained safe in hidden shelters. Marcus noticed the leader of the Bladed Suns, Korak, moving aggressively, attempting to rally his troops. Marcus knew this was the moment to act decisively. He motioned to the widows. "Keep the villagers safe. The rest is my responsibility," he said. Asha hesitated for a moment, but nodded. "Be careful," she said. Marcus moved down the ridge alone, approaching Korak and his guards. The pirates were confident in their numbers, but Marcus's calm demeanor and precise movements unnerved them. He did not raise his weapon immediately. Instead, he stood firm, showing no fear. Korak sneered. "You think you can stop us alone, human?" Marcus's eyes were sharp. "I do not fight for pride. I fight for life. Step back, or you will face consequences you do not expect." Korak lunged first, swinging a blade recklessly. Marcus moved with calculated precision, sidestepping and using the pirate's momentum against him. A quick, non-lethal takedown sent Korak sprawling. The remaining pirates hesitated, unsure how to respond. Marcus signaled traps to trigger at the right moments, while the widows executed their plan flawlessly. The pirates were trapped, delayed, and disoriented. Their confidence crumbled. By midday, the Bladed Suns' morale had broken. Marcus coordinated the defense with the widows, leading them in controlled movements that forced the pirates into disadvantageous positions. Every attack, every trap, every move was deliberate. Tala guided scouts into hidden containment zones. Lyrene reset mechanical traps as needed. Morris ensured villagers remained calm and safe. Vea monitored enemy movements, predicting their next steps. Asha orchestrated the defense, keeping everyone coordinated. Marcus knew victory depended not on strength alone, but on intelligence, strategy, and coordination. His exile, his silence, and his training had led to this moment. The pirates were learning too late that brute force could not overcome careful planning. As the final wave of pirates approached, Marcus moved forward, ready to confront Korak again. The leader had regrouped, furious at the loss of his scouts. He rushed toward Marcus, weapon raised. Marcus met him calmly. "It ends now," he said. Korak attacked fiercely, but Marcus anticipated every move. Using precise maneuvers, he disarmed the leader without causing serious harm. Korak stumbled, defeated not by brute strength, but by intelligence and skill. The remaining pirates, seeing their leader taken, surrendered. The Bladed Sun's attack had failed completely. The settlement of Vara 7 remained intact. The widows gathered around Marcus after the battle. Their eyes shone with pride, relief, and gratitude. They had faced a powerful enemy and survived. Not by luck, but through courage, intelligence, and teamwork. Asha stepped forward. "You saved us," she said quietly. "Not with violence, but with guidance, patience, and wisdom. You are more than a soldier. You are a protector." Marcus shook his head. "I did not do it alone. You all fought with courage, intelligence, and trust. Without you, none of this would have worked. You are warriors, not just widows." Vaya smiled. "We learned from you, and we learned from each other. We will never be helpless again." Morris, Tala, and Lyrene nodded in agreement. The settlement was safe, and the widows had become a symbol of strength and resilience. That evening, Marcus stood on the cliffs once more, looking at the settlement. The farms were quiet, the villagers safe, and the widows prepared for any future threat. He had trained them, guided them, and fought alongside them. For the first time in years, he felt a sense of belonging and purpose. The widows approached him, their steps careful but confident. Asha spoke first. "We owe you our lives. Not as a favor, but as truth. You gave us hope, guidance, and courage when we had none." Marcus felt the weight of his past lift slightly. He had been exiled, silent, and broken. But now, he was part of something meaningful. He had found a team, a purpose, and a chance to protect without fear. "You have earned your place here," he said softly. "Not because of what I did, but because of what you have become. Together, we are stronger than any threat that comes to these lands." The widows smiled, understanding that Marcus was no longer the silent man on the cliffs. He was their protector, their guide, and their ally. And together, they had transformed a settlement once marked by grief into a place of strength and hope. Days passed, and life began to return to the settlement. The villagers worked alongside the widows, rebuilding farms, reinforcing walls, and strengthening defenses. Marcus continued to guide them, but the widows were no longer dependent. They were capable, confident, and ready to defend themselves. The Bladed Suns were gone, their plans thwarted. Word of the failed attack spread, and neighboring settlements whispered of the human and the 5 widows who had defeated a powerful pirate warband. Marcus had become a symbol not of violence, but of courage, strategy, and hope. One evening, as the moons rose over the cliffs, Marcus and the widows stood together. The wind carried the scent of metal and soil, of life and renewal. They had faced darkness and survived. They had grown stronger. They had become more than they were. Asha spoke softly. "You are not alone anymore, Marcus. We stand with you, as you have stood with us." Marcus looked at the 5 women, their faces shining with trust and courage. For the first time in his life, he felt a complete sense of belonging. He was no longer an exile. He was part of a team, part of a settlement, part of a future worth fighting for. And as the stars shone above Vara 7, Marcus Hale, the once silent soldier, knew that he would never hide again. He would stand, protect, and guide those who trusted him. He would face any challenge with courage, intelligence, and purpose. The widows smiled beside him, not as followers, but as equals. Together, they had turned fear into strength, loss into resilience, and silence into action. The settlement of Vara 7 was safe, not because of luck, but because of courage, trust, and the unlikely bond between a human soldier and 5 determined widows. For Marcus, the cliffs were no longer a place of exile. They were a place of home, purpose, and honor. And together, they had all found a future worth protecting.